Hello friends, welcome to my channel. This will be a different kind of video than what I normally put out. Due to my channel, I get a lot of people asking me like names of lakes, like where I go, and those are the questions I usually don't respond to, simply because a lot of the lakes I go to are smaller, less visited lakes that are good lakes simply because very few people fish them. They receive very little pressure. That being said, there is a lot of information out there available to help people find spots or to help just find new spots, places to fish. So this video is going to be more or less how I go about searching for new places to fish, or what I look for when I'm targeting a new area, or areas that I've never been to before, how I research the lakes that I plan on visiting. So I'll just go through the different things I do, different ways I do it, and the resources I use. So anyway, let's get going. So I'm going to focus mostly on Utah because that's where I'm from, where I live. But the information will apply to most states as far as the research I do. So when I got into backpacking, I was like 11 years old the first time. It was just in the high Uintas, which is basically our wilderness area. And that's where I've spent the vast majority of my time because it's an hour away. Early on, there wasn't a whole lot of information. There was a handful of pamphlets that the state put out as far as what fish were in which lakes, and it gave tips on a handful of lakes that kicked out bigger fish. And to be honest, to this day, those are some of the best lakes. But back then, when I would just pick a drainage, pack in and hit every lake in it, and the next weekend go to another drainage, do the same thing, and I found a lot of my favorite lakes I found just by simply exploring, by just hiking hundreds of miles in search of fish. That was a long time ago. That's back when the internet wasn't really around, or when the internet was new. So fortunately, if you're getting into fly fishing now, especially backcountry stuff, which is pretty much my favorite at this point, there's a lot of information out there. You don't have to do as much legwork as you did back in the old days. There's a lot of information out. Just simply Googling stuff, you can find a lot of information. But in the state of Utah, there's a lot of information, just on the Utah DNR website, which I'm going to show you and go over here in a minute. A lot of information. You can find out or find many good lakes or many good destinations by just simply doing an internet search anymore. It's unfortunate, actually, on some lakes there's a little too much information out there. The first thing I would suggest, there's a few books I would recommend. Every state probably has some fishing guides. In Utah, I picked up a book 1999. It was a Utah fishing guide by Steve Cook. I think it's Steve Cook. I was going to show it, but I can't find it at the moment. That has almost every destination there is in the state of Utah. It doesn't have everyone, but most of them. And me and my friend, we just dissected that book, and anytime we were in an area, we would just try to hit every single stream, lake that mentioned in there. So that was one. It's called the Utah Fishing Guide. It's old. I think you can still probably find it on Amazon. I would show you what it looks like, but I can't find it. Another example is a couple books that I picked up. Also one in 1999, another one just around 2000, which is, I'll just show you. All right. Two books that I would highly recommend. This isn't really for Utah. There's a little bit of information in Utah about one of the books. I would highly recommend. Most people who are into backcountry fly fishing know about it, but the main one is this book right here, Fly Fishing the Rocky Mountain Backcountry by Rich Ossoff. I think it was 1999 when I picked up this book, and it changed backcountry fishing for me. I love going to the high Uintas and just fishing in general, but this lit a fire under my caboose to go backpack deep, and especially to go after golden trout in Wyoming, which, if you've read this book, I'm sure that's the main thing that piqued your interest as well. It's an awesome book. It's old. Some of the information is kind of outdated as far as destinations go, because lakes just change over time. That's a fact. But as far as the techniques that Rich gives in this book, as far as patterns and stuff, highly recommend this book. In fact, I can't understate how much I recommend this book. Get it. If you don't already own it, get it. Another one I picked a long time ago is this Fishing the Beartooth by Pat Markison. He was I think a fisheries biologist in in Montana. It would go survey all the lakes. If you're gonna fish in Montana, especially the Beartooth, or a little bit about the Crazy Mountains, I think you can still find this book. I looked on Amazon a while back, and they had a few copies for like $60. So maybe you can find one used, but highly informative as far as, you know, the different lakes, like what species are in, and he even gives some advice on some lakes that give, you know, kick out bigger fish. And trust me, to this day, most of those lakes are still the lakes that kick out bigger fish. So if you're gonna fish the Beartooths, I would try to find a copy of this book, Fishing the Beartooths. But definitely pick up Fly Fishing the Rocky Mountain Backcountry, especially if you're interested in going after golden trout. There's a lot of destinations, a little bit in Utah. He focuses mostly on the winds, but there's some, the Beartooths, flat tops, a lot of good information. I would recommend it. There's an old picture of Rich himself with a big old huge golden trout. So yeah, get that book. Get them both. As far as Utah goes, besides that Utah Fishing Guide, which I don't know, it's maybe out of print, the state put out a whole bunch of brochures on the different drainages of the high Uintas back in the day, and they stopped. I heard they stopped, you know, printing them all together, so you can't really get them anymore. So maybe wondering why I'm showing you this. A lot of the information from these booklets is now online. Not all of it, but a lot of it. In my early days, I mean, I read every one of them. There's 10 of them. There's only 5 of them, but there's a series of 10. And it has maps, numbers of lakes, and even says, you know, some of the lakes which kick out bigger fish. And to this very day, some of my very favorite lakes in the high Uintas are mentioned in these as this lake produces bigger fish. So I will show you online here in a minute, like where you can go to find the information. But yeah, these, it's too bad you can't get them anymore. I've heard you can't get them anymore. If you can, I would try, but they were very helpful. So anyways, those are some of the books I recommend. I know the brochures don't really help you as far as the Uintas because they don't make them anymore, but I will show you where you can find that information online here in a minute. But before that, I'm going to go over some of the other sources or, you know, places you can get information. First of all, fisheries biologists. Give them a call. If you're going to go to an area or you're like wanting to target a particular kind of fish, I've called several biologists in state of Utah and Wyoming or wherever I'm going just to simply ask. I found over the years that there are some that are far more knowledgeable than others as far as places, but if you get in contact with the right one, they might not tell you this lake, you know, this is the trophy lake, but I had them point me in the right direction. I found some of the best lakes I know by simply asking which direction I should start. It's like if you're fishing Utah, I mean, they'll probably get annoyed that I'm suggesting you do, but you know, it's their job. Give them a call and ask, say, hey, I'm going to the Uintas. Where can I go? I'm looking for some nice brook trout or whatever. And maybe they won't give you information, or you know, maybe not tell you the trophy lakes, but maybe they will. So another way, this is one that takes time, is talking to people on the trail. Many years ago, I was doing a solo backpacking trip in the Uintas, and a lake that's not visited very often. And I was fishing it, and this a fisheries biologist happened to show up at that lake to do like a pH sample or pH test. And I ended up talking to him, and we were talking about, you know, different lakes I like to go to were clearly trophy lakes. And he's like, well, geez, you know, you're only a mile away from this lake. You should go try this particular lake. And I did, and it is one of my very favorite lakes, and the Uintas has been for the last 20 years. It has big fish, so meeting people on the trail. Many years ago, me and a close friend did a 30-plus mile hike in the Wind River Range to go after some big golden. It's one of the best golden trout lakes in the world. It's not an easy place to get to, and you know, we hiked in, and when we got there was 2 other guys about our age already camped there, and we're like, you gotta be kidding me. We hiked this far just to be around other people, and we were kind of disappointed. Turns out they were a little disappointed as well, but we ended up camping by them, and we've been going on trips with them ever since. They like the same things that we do. They have their spots, we had our spots. So try to get a core group of friends. If you meet someone on the trail, chat them up. You never know, maybe they'll give you some information about, you know, a good lake. In fact, those guys we met, I just went on a trip this past summer with one, and he caught a huge fish. I made a video of it, but we decided for selfish purposes not to make it public. Yeah, selfish, but we found a good one. So, just people on the trail. I've met quite a few people on the trail that I've kept in contact with over the years, and I've gotten some tips. Once you get once you start getting a pool of lakes that good lakes, when you have something to trade, that's when once you're someone who's in the know, you can, trade lakes for other people that share the same passion. And it's just the common rule is, don't just go post it on Facebook or whatever, like, oh, this is where you need to go. So when you're starting out, I know that's a little frustrating because you don't have your own lakes, but just keep that in mind. If you be friendly with people on the trail, you never know who's gonna give you a tip on where to try. I've gotten several over the years, and I've met friends that I backpack with to this day by doing so. So that's another thing you can try. Another thing, I kind of mentioned this at the first. Early on, I would just try every lake in an area. If you go into an area and there's a particular lake that you've been told it has big fish, I would still give yourself a little bit of time to try as many lakes as you can, because even lakes that are not known for kicking out big fish under the right circumstances can. One of my earliest backpacking trips, we were hiking into a lake and we stopped to take a rest at a very small lake, right, pretty close to the trail. I mean, just within view of a trail that no one fishes. They just pass on by, and it was back before I fly fish. I just threw out a spinner, and my very first cast, I caught a brook trout that was pushing 4 pounds. The second cast, I caught another one that was pushing 3 pounds. 2 casts in a row, and those are the only 2 fish we caught. I've been to that lake many, many times since. I've never seen anyone else fishing it. Only one other time I have found big fish. It's a lake that winter kills frequently. It's super shallow, and it winter kills, but if they survive a few years, twice I've found fish over 3 pounds in that lake. So, I mean, still keep exploring, an attitude to explore, even though you might be focused in on one lake, because you never know. I wouldn't focus a lot of time, but I always try to give myself time to, just go see, because you never know. So now we're gonna get into the stuff that you can find online, and that's honestly where the most information is. If you have a computer, you can find a lot of info on places to try. There's several good resources. There's actually too much information out there, to be honest, but it is what it is. So, sorry, I'm not extremely tech savvy, so I'm just gonna film my computer screen with this camera instead of taking a screenshot of you, or basically a stream of it. So, anyways, now I'll show you the sources you can use online to search for lakes. All right. So, of all the game-changing things that come about as far as information online, one of the greatest ever for both fishing and hunting is in fact Google Earth. Google Earth changes everything. Before, you have a topo map and you would just guess what it was going to be like. You kind of could get the contour of getting into places, but you didn't know what you were actually getting into. Google Earth allows you to see routes, where's open, where's not. But more importantly, it allows you to look at the lakes themselves. Here's a string of lakes in a random range. I've never been to them, so let me point that out. You can probably see the GPS coordinate down in the bottom, but I've never been to them. But from my experience, from what I know, what I look for in a lake, out of all these lakes, I have no idea what's in them, if what they're stocked with, if they have fish. I'm assuming they do. But just by looking at the color of the lakes and what they look for, what I would want, or what the lake that would most interest me out of all these lakes would be this guy right here. Zoom in a little bit, and here's why. This lake, it may not have fish at all, but you can tell by the coloration it's a fairly shallow lake. Shallow lakes are often the lakes that kick out trophy fish, big fish. Lakes that are prone to winter kill, they're more often than not the lakes that also kick out trophy fish when the fish survive a handful of years. The reason why: photosynthesis occurs in shallow lakes, or usually around the rim of lakes, and that's where the food is produced. When lakes have extensive shallows, or this lake looks pretty much all shallow, if the fish survive, it's just usually a smorgasbord of food. And so, I don't know anything about these lakes. I've never been to them, but if I went to these lakes, I would try them all for sure. But the lake I would try first is this lake. Maybe there's no fish, maybe it has small fish, maybe there's lots of different factors that go into it. But I would try them all. But the small lakes, a lot of the best lakes are just smaller lakes. Like this one right here, it might be the trophy producer. It's got pretty extensive shallows. It has deeper spot in the middle where the fish could, winter. I don't know if it has fish at all, but I would definitely try that one. Who knows? Maybe this big lake right here has the most, the biggest fish. But not knowing anything about it, I would choose this lake and spend some time there. The other good thing about Google Earth that allows you, like I said, to choose your route. Like you can see, like if you're coming this way, it might be a mega bushwhack through the trees. So a lot of times I'll skirt meadows. Like meadows themselves are usually marshy, but if you follow the tree line, usually you can avoid that, and then you can get, and cruise a lot faster, get some open terrain. So spend some time on Google Earth wherever you're planning on going. Every trip I do, I study Google Earth first, especially if it's an area that's new. So keep that in mind. So first of all, I'm sorry about the basically fishbowl look of the screen. I mean, it's just a GoPro, so nothing I can do about it. But so as far as the state of Utah goes, just go to the Utah DNR webpage. So here we are. It's the Utah Division Wildlife Resource page. Right here on the top is fishing. Go to the main fishing page. Scroll down here and you'll see a place say fishing in Utah. Click on that. Right off the top, find a place to fish. This takes you to an interactive map. There is so much information on here that's ridiculous. In fact, there's too much information. I wish they would have left out some details on a lot of the information on this page. It's an interactive map, so this is a game. If you don't know where to fish, this is a game changer. Getting on this website and clicking on this interactive map. If you zoom in, there's tons. Every one of these like little fish symbols you see is like either a drainage or a specific body of water. It's not. There are some places or some fisheries that are not listed, which I'm grateful for. There's a couple like really of my favorite lakes that aren't on here, which I think is a good thing. But then there's a lot of them that I think they give too much information. As far as the Uintas go, it's up here in the top right-hand corner of the state of Utah. This is where those pamphlets I was telling you about that no longer are produced, where you can find some of the information. We'll just pick one of the most popular destinations in the Uintas, which is not really a secret, basically the Granddaddy Basin. It's the most popular basin in the Uintas that you can't drive to. It gets a lot of traffic, but it also has some big fish in this basin. So if you get on this if you get on this interactive map, zoom in on whatever drainage you want and then click on the little fish symbol, and then that will give you a description of the area and highlight the lakes. This little definition on the right is what you want to focus on. I would study these maps, study the lakes. If you click on an individual lake, it'll tell you a name, or like a lot of lakes in the Uintas are not, they just have like a number, like I'll say like this one's Francis RC15, so it may just be listed as RC15 versus Francis. But look at, if you're going into a drainage, look on this map and then read the description. It doesn't have the entire Uintas in it, but it has a lot of information on some of the a lot of the drainages. For example, this is the Granddaddy Basin. Over here is it's called Rock Creek. Basically, it gives a description of the different lakes. More importantly, it tells you which lakes are brook trout lakes, cut lakes, and grayling lakes. The part you're going to want to pay attention to, not every drainage gives this information, but the ones that do, it'll say lakes that can produce larger, higher quality fish. Then it has a list of about, probably close to 20 lakes. One of my top 5 lakes is on this list, to be exact. And I mean, if you don't know what you're doing, focus on that list if you're wanting to find bigger fish. Some of the lakes, doesn't kick, aren't awesome anymore, or don't kick out really big ones, but a lot of them do. So if you're looking for bigger fish, focus on that list. It also, if you're just wanting to catch a lot, there's another list that has a bunch of lakes that have higher catch rates. So I would spend a lot of time on this interactive map, like a lot, if you're wanting to get into bigger fish. So this ties with these lakes that produce bigger fish, or ones that have a high catch rate, ties into something else on the webpage. Back up one step, and we click on fishing in Utah, right where it said find a place to fish, scroll down forward to stocking reports. This is another thing you really will want to pay attention to if you're trying to find bigger fish. you want to hit lakes, at least me personally, I like to hit lakes when the fish are 4 to 6 years old. 6 is kind of the high end for a lot of lakes in the Uintas or like other places, but 4 to 6 years are the lakes I target. So if I'm planning on going to an area, I will just look up the lake or look into so it's 2021, so somewhere between 2018 to 2015 in that area, I will look at the whatever lake I'm interested in and see what years they were stocked. If it's like a lake that was stocked 5 years ago, that's the ideal, but I've caught fish that are 8 years old in some lakes. So but definitely you'll want to look for lakes that were stocked at least, I'd say, 4 years ago. And a lot of lakes like in the high Uintas are stocked like every couple years, some are every few. It just depends on the lake. Another little secret tip you might want to look for: how many fish are stocked. If it's a small lake and you look and it's only stocked with 100 fish or like a couple hundred fish, odds are that's a lake that they want to kick out big fish. And that's actually kind of a big tip, to be honest. So if they're only putting a few fish in lakes that don't look like they have any spawning habitat, those are likely lakes that will kick out bigger fish. So you want to keep that in mind. But definitely look at the map, study it. I mean, there's information all over the state. Is as far as Utah goes. I mean, there's a lot of information down south. I mean, there's honestly, like I said, I wish some of it was left off but fortunately, there are a handful of trophy-producing lakes that they've not put on here for that very reason. But most of them are on here, so spend some time on here, especially if you're in Utah. So next up, you have the Wyoming Fish and Game webpage. There's a link on their page to the Bridger Wilderness Guide to Fishing Lakes. So this is a guide to the west side of the Wind River Range. So anyone's into backpacking or backcountry fly fishing, you know about the winds. The winds are the most popular range in the Rockies. It sees a lot of traffic, but there are a ton of lakes, and more importantly, big fish. There's probably on average bigger fish in the winds than any of the other ranges, like Beartooth, Uintas. On average, there's a lot of quality lakes, and they have this guide doesn't tell you about the size of fish, but it does list like what lakes have what species. If you just scroll down a bit, it'll show the various different trailheads with trails, and all the lakes are numbered. And then you can go to the bottom right of each page, and it'll list what species are in that particular lake. Then you can take that same information, the lakes you're gonna, the ones you plan on visiting, and match that up with the stock schedule, and just try to hit lakes 4 to 6 years. And then you're likely to run into bigger fish. It has basically the entire west side of the range. So I would definitely spend some time on this as well if you're planning on going to the winds. Alright, so kind of a quick recap. I went over how I search for lakes. Early on it was just foot on trail, but then since the advent of Google Earth and all the information on the internet, you don't have to do nearly as much legwork to find spots. So to recap, so you want to maybe get those books I suggested, or at least check them out. You can simply Google a lot of names of lakes that you plan on going to, like in an area, and every once in a while you'll find a gem. It's like, oh, here's a picture of a big fish from that lake. You never know. One more thing you might want to try, we found a couple gems this way, is if you're going to go into whatever range, usually the main towns are like the access points where people, the main trailheads are. There's usually like an outdoor shop, fly shop, that kind of thing. Go in there and ask. Probably buy something, so the shop owners are more likely to give you some information and just say, hey, I'm planning on going to this area. Have you heard anything? And then keep your ears open. My buddy was in one shop when we were going to go into the winds, and he overheard a couple guys talking about a lake. So we researched that lake. Turned out to be a trophy brook trout lake. So just keep your ear open. Talk to people you can. Anyway, be friendly with people, and they just might give you some tips on some good spots. So anyway, I hope this information was helpful. Hopefully, you'll be able to find some of your own honey holes, but just do a little research, then get out there on the trail. I appreciate you guys watching. Once again, give it a thumbs up, like, share it with your friends. So thanks for watching. Hopefully the video helps. Until next time.